Hello and welcome back. It is the MLB DFS breakdown presented by LineStar for June 19th. What we're going to go over today in the show is we're going to start off with a little bit of rundown of Sunday Father's Day MLB DFS Slate, just to kind of give you what the winning lineup was and what structure they used, along with comparing that to the perfect lineup. And before we get fully into it, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to all of our videos. It helps us out a ton to just keep feeding that algo and allow us to give the free content. Also, if you are not already, come join us at LineStar. It's only $29.99 a month. Gets you access to all of our props, all of our DFS. It's really the best deal in sports or in DFS and prop betting. So I suggest you jump in. And if you don't already know, we do have a new promo with Sleeper, the Sleeper Picks. You have to deposit at least $20 if you're a new customer to Sleeper. Then we can get you 2 months free and up to $100 deposit matched. Promo code is LineStar, or you can just use the link in our website to take you there. So that is a new one. If you do use that and take advantage of that, make sure to email us and let us know your username, so then we can kind of credit you the 2 months free. Now, without further ado, let's just jump right into it. A little bit of longer intro than normal. Let's start with going to the perfect lineup on DraftKings. So yesterday, it looks like Dean Kramer and Freddie Peralta were the pitchers you wanted. And then also a Braves and Texas stack, which is kind of interesting when you come to the winning lineup. What we did here was we had a St. Louis stack with some Braves. A couple Braves outfielders and Arcia. So a cheaper, lower-end Brave stack with the stack of the Cardinals got it done. They didn't use Peralta. They used Luzardo. Got it done. He didn't score that much less than Peralta. So that's all it needed. And he had a nice little 2-point break here from first. Now let's check over the FanDuel one. FanDuel perfect lineup is using Peralta. Braves are all scattered in there. A little bit of St. Louis. So as we talked about, one thing that's insanely hard to do is pick all of the really good value options on a slate. That's why we stack, because it makes it easier. As you can see, you pick Braves and you had a lot higher chance of getting closer to the perfect lineup yesterday. Now, if we check in and look at the winning lineup, this is in, the bigger, I think it was a $9 contest yesterday, $20K to first. Brave stack won it, and then they just had 4 one-offs. So Brave stack, Matt Olson got it done, Ozuna, Rosario, Harris really crushed it. Rosario absolutely dominated yesterday. Without him, you're probably not really cashing. Or actually, he was only 8% drafted, so still could cash, but you're definitely not winning, definitely not towards the top end of this contest. So a nice little structure, and he did use Peralta as same as the perfect lineup. So that is an interesting little lineup, good structure, just a little harder to hit with 4 one-offs. Typically for FanDuel, I like to at least do a 4 stack with, say a stack of 2, a mini stack, or a stack of 3. I generally don't just go for one-offs just because it's very hard to hit. This guy pulled it off. You can do it. I just don't think you're going to be able to replicate that very often. Now, let's get into the slate. Let's go have some fun. So we got a 7-gamer. One weather note that I want to bring up now is the Cincinnati and Colorado game. It looks like there are a lot of storms around, but it's just way too early to tell the chance of this game being PPD'd. So keep your eye on that. Come to it because it is a really good game, and we probably do want to target it if it's going to play. It's just, will it? And when it comes down to game time, a lot of the times when is kind of iffy, the ownership on that game will go down a little bit than whatever is projected, just because people don't want to take that chance. So just remember that when it comes a little bit closer. And situations like this as a whole make it a lot harder to project for ownership. Now let's just jump in to the pitching ownership. We're on FanDuel. Let's just go to DraftKings because that's where we always start. All right, so our highest own is James Paxton, coming in at almost 34%, 9,300. He's in a decent spot here versus the Twins, although it's a poor umpire for pitching that he's going against, but Minnesota strikes out 25.1% versus lefties, and then they have a low WOBA versus lefties. So it's an interesting spot. The splits for Minnesota definitely favor Paxton. One thing I do want to bring up with Paxton, he does have real high strikeout upside with 31.8% K rate over his last 20 starts, and he has a low FIP, so he's been a very good pitcher. The issue I see with him in following the chalk is he does have almost 35% hard contact, high average exit velocity, a lot of line drives. Guys are hitting him decently when they hit him, but he does have good swing and miss stuff. So kind of an interesting spot because I could see you go either way. We have seen this year games where he gets blown up. 3 innings, 59 pitches, 5 earned runs, gave up 2 home runs. So guys can get to him. So I wouldn't totally fade the Minnesota offense. I think it's going to be a nice little leverage spot. But Paxton does look good. He does have pretty high upside with 28% combined K rate, or almost 28% at 9,300. So I like the price. Our projection's decent on him. Understand why he is getting that ownership bump. Now we got Max Scherzer. Scherzer has just been real inconsistent this year. His FIP over the last 20 starts is 4. Over the last 5, 4.18. It does look like he's been getting a little unlucky here. So I wouldn't totally discredit Scherzer saying that he is just washed. But this is a tough matchup for him. And I don't know if versus the Astros is where I want to, not only just versus the Astros, higher owned and versus the Astros is where I really want to see if Scherzer is washed or not. Personally, I'm probably going away from it. He hasn't looked great. I think there's a lot of different ways he can get into trouble in this game versus the Astros. And the upside isn't there like on a normal Scherzer game, just because Houston's only striking out 21% versus righties, and his K rate is down to 26 from, when it used to be in the high 20s. And so he's not quite the pitcher that he has been. He's still a good pitcher, don't get me wrong. And there's a lot of questions about him being washed. This probably is not where I want to test it. And LineStar agrees with only a 15% projection. Next, we got Corbin Burns versus this Diamondbacks lineup that just keeps hitting, man. They only strike out 19% versus righties. Solid WOBA, solid ISO versus righties. The one thing is Arizona is only hitting 184 and 51 at bats for Corbin. Now this is going to be over the last 3 years, so he's been very good versus Arizona. The one thing that would not be in there is much data versus him and some of the younger guys, as he has only played Arizona once this year. And being younger guys, I'm talking about Corbin Carroll in particular. But Corbin, 3.57 ERA or FIP over the last 20, up to 4.25 over the last 5. But he has gone against some really good teams lately: Minnesota, Baltimore, Cincinnati, San Francisco, Houston. So that recent 5-start number, I wouldn't take a ton into account. I know Cincinnati isn't, the best offense in the world. However, it was in Cincinnati, which we know is a very good hitter's park. What else? With Corbin, 23.7% combined K rate. I think he's in a okay spot here. The total's really low. Ownership isn't going there because it's against the Diamondbacks, but I mean, he's one of the best pitchers in the game. You could do worse than going with Corbin. I don't love it, though. Next, we got Merrill Kelly, 23% versus the Brewers. Brewers strike out almost 22.6% versus righties. Merrill Kelly has done really well versus the Brewers in 78 plate attempts, 183. So pretty low there. 78 plate attempts is enough where I'm actually starting to take that data and consider it as something to put in the wheelhouse here. But look, 3.95 FIP over those last 5. Over the last 20, though, 4.5. But he's been pitching very good this year. 3.25 FIP, 83 innings, 89 Ks, solid K per 9 rate, 25.5% K rate over the 20 starts, but that's up to 27.4 over the last 5. Combined K rate is solid at 9,600. I think you have to consider this. His FIP is a little bit higher than I would like at this salary, but he's in a decent spot. And it's on a slate with not much pitching. So understand the price tag there because of that. Now we got Pablo Lopez versus the Red Sox. I think Pablo Lopez is in an okay spot. Boston is good versus righties, though. 19.4% K rate, decent WOBA, decent ISO. Another bummer for him is just the umpire. Umpire doesn't allow quite as many walks, doesn't allow quite as many Ks, so that is a bummer, but he's still in a decent spot here. We don't really have any data, BVP data to go off as, only 14 plate attempts, and I think those were all quite a while ago. So as far as his data and who he's been this year, 3.52 FIP over his last 20, 3.06 over the last 5. This guy has been a legit, very quality starter this year. Solid K rate around 28%. Combined K rate of 23%. I think you could do worse than taking a stab at Pablo at 9,100 today. And, okay projection there. After Pablo Lopez, there's a couple guys that I think we need to talk about. Waka, who's been absolutely insane lately. It is versus the Giants team that's hitting righties decently, though. They're not striking out a ton. Solid WOBA, solid ISO. But Waka's just been great. 3.06 FIP, 24% K rate. I don't mind going there versus these Giants today. Combined K rate 23.9 at 8,300 is interesting, and it's a decent projection for his salary. Another one we got to bring up is Hunter Brown. Hunter Brown has just been spectacular. Over his last 5, 2.99 FIP, 30.3% K rate. He's in a decent spot here versus the Mets. They have an okay WOBA, okay ISO versus righties, and they don't strike out a ton, but the combined K rate is still 25.6. At low ownership, it is kind of interesting to go here. I don't mind it. He's been a solid pitcher all year. StatCast data looks really good. The other one I wanted to bring up as far as a low-owned play is Andrew Heaney. Look, he hasn't been that great this year. 4.05 ERA, 70 Ks and 66 innings is decent, though. So we know he has a decent little K rate there. And the hitting weather today does support hitting. But look, Heaney at 7,500 has a low 4 FIP over the last 5 starts. High 4s over the last 20. But we know he has a decent K rate. And this Chicago White Sox team is decent, but they're not great. It is a pitcher-friendly park. He's averaging 25% more fantasy points win away. So I think there's some things in his favor at low-owned and a low price. I think he is kind of interesting today. And as, say, an SP2 on DraftKings, I think he's interesting. Do I love him on FanDuel? No, I think you can probably get some upside elsewhere, but I do think he's interesting in taking some stabs in a game that Texas likely wins. So There we go. Now let's get over to FanDuel and check this out a little bit. So FanDuel, Pablo Lopez is high owned, 22.5%. We mentioned liking him on DraftKings. Corbin is next at 22%. Max at 19%. And James Paxton only at 16% is pretty interesting when he's really similar price to everybody else here. Low-owned guys, Waka's there, Heaney's there. If you want to go to them, feel free. I think you can, and you're going to get leverage just because nobody else is going there. All you really need is these top-end guys to not get the K upside that you like. Oh, you got to talk about Hunter Brown too. 2.6% and only 98K, 9.8K is very, very interesting to me. Now let's get into the stacks. All right, we got the stack attacks. So coming in right now, the highest owned is Cincinnati. Now, remember, as I said earlier, this game does have some weather. And with that, I expect the ownership on them to come down or be lower than what is projected. So I think it is very interesting to go Cincinnati today. However, make sure you keep an eye on weather when it comes to lock. We will have more information. It's scattered storms, so it really depends on where those storms end up around game time, if this game is going to play or not, or have delays during it. Now, Gomber, he just simply isn't good. Hasn't been good over his last 20 starts, even worse over his last 5. So I think you got to consider Cincinnati today. The White Sox, it's versus Andrew Heaney, 4.75 FIP over his last 20. I don't mind him using him as a pitcher, but I also think he's in a decent spot to pick on him with the White Sox. With Jimenez and Roberts and Vaughn and Berger, everybody in this lineup has kind of been hitting lately, and it is a little bit interesting. Let's get over to DraftKings. I just realized I was still on FanDuel. But the White Sox are a little interesting to me. I don't love them, but I don't mind them on a mini stack. Another one I think we got to consider here is the Rangers. So it is in the opposite side of the same game, White Sox versus Rangers. It looks like it is going to be a little bit of a bullpen game. The guy that is likely going to start hasn't gone more than like 20 pitches in the last 2-3 weeks. So he likely only goes 3 or 4 innings max, and we got a poor White Sox bullpen behind him. So I think that's really interesting, especially if there's no or little ownership there. Cubs, absolutely kind of interesting. It's warm in Pittsburgh. The ball might fly a little bit. And let's get over to projection now. Cincinnati's owning the projections. I have to agree with it. They're in a decent spot. Again, weather warn, got a warn there. And Texas Rangers, like that one. Arizona. Now, this is major leverage. This team keeps hitting. They work the count. Corbin Burns may not go quite as deep as what we're used to. So I think it's interesting to go with a leverage stack here with Arizona if you're playing in a big GPP. Now, I probably wouldn't use them in, a smaller tournament just because you don't need that type of leverage. But in those big 20K entries, he's interesting. All right. Colorado's popping up too. So I think you gotta be interested in Colorado too. FIP of 6 for Williamson over the last 20, over the last 5, 6.44. Colorado is getting pretty much no ownership in the same environment as Cincinnati, so that one's really interesting to me. And if you guys have paid attention to these shows, you know that I always like the highest game total and the one that's not the favorite, just because, look, it's baseball. Anybody can win any single game, and you still have that same game environment, just at way lower ownership. Value-wise, White Sox are popping up. No surprise there. And then the Astros are popping up, which this is very interesting. Astros versus Scherzer. Scherzer's got blown up a little bit this year, so you could do worse than going Astros very low owned. Giants popping up against Walker. Walker's been insane lately, but I don't know how long he can keep that up. Smiley versus Pitt. I think this is very interesting. Pittsburgh's in a decent spot here. They got decent BVP versus him. And I don't think Smiley's that good. And the last 5 starts, his FIP agrees at 5.88. So that's an interesting spot. And now ceiling-wise, Rangers. Rangers are always popping up on the ceiling. This offense just can score so many runs. So I think you got to be interested on the Rangers today, as we've said a couple times. And Pitt popping up again here on the ceiling. So I think there's a lot of kind of fun ways you can go. Pitching is a bit tricky on this slate, but as a whole, I think this slate is pretty interesting. I hope you guys have a great evening. Good luck, and we will see you back tomorrow. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe our video. Adios, guys. Bye.